one of our film directors back there, he knew, he was working for Robert F. Kennedy, and he was in the same city, and I think he shook his hand and everything, when the same day Kennedy was shot and killed. And he has bumper stickers from the campaign, the originals. He has original envelopes from Robert F. Kennedy's desk for the campaign. And we have Paul Schrade, who will be speaking later, who has signed them. Paul was hit and struck in the head by a bullet from Sirhan Sirhan. And you'll get photographs and all that. So these items will be auctioned off. They're extremely rare, and if you put them online and all that, you're talking about probably a couple $100. So think about that, and if you want that for your memorabilia, for a collection, or if you just want it because you want to support the conference. Okay, we're going to have DVDs, also the 2016 variety again. Sorry about the 2017. The person we had there, we have much better crew this year. Randolph Benson, for example, is a filmmaker. The person we had before just made commercials, and so some of the heads are cut off and some of the things. We're working on trying to get that to you. I'm finished now. I hope you have any questions out there. Any questions? Remember, we're getting the T-shirts that are coming. So if you ordered and you wanted a shirt, I have the record there, and we'll give you your T-shirt. Or if you got the Kennedy and Oswald book, because everybody who came in early, they said, well, you can get a free K&O. Or you can, if you want, you can go ahead and buy it for us, All right. So thank you for coming. I love you. Let's have Live Love. You've got a little button in your thing. Open up. You'll see it says Live Love. Because if we do this with hate, we're just not going to be any better than they are we? Okay, thank you. So this is Glenda. All right. And then lead them to the flag.
Hi, my name is Glenda, and I'm going to lead you in prayer. So, Lord God Almighty, we ask for a blessing upon this conference, upon the speakers, and upon everyone here. As we begin, let us bow our heads in prayer. Dear Lord God, we come before you as your servants. Cover us with your protective hand. Fill us with wisdom and knowledge and understanding. We are blessed to be able to come together. In the book of Matthew, it states, where two or more are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. We, Lord, are in your very presence. Fill us with courage and love. Help us to respect one another's differences with a loving spirit. There are many in this room that once lived their life in fear, but because of faith, they have the courage to come forth and present truth. Bless them because of their willingness to speak out and speak up in a world that has abandoned the truth of Scripture. The Bible says that perfect faith casts out all fear, and that you have not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. Help us, Lord, to always keep these words living in our heart. As we listen and learn, give us courage to go forth in your power. Each of us is given a voice and a place to speak up, to be your tool. We each have this responsibility. We pray that your name be lifted up on earth as it is in heaven. It is the power of prayer that can move mountains. The kingdom of darkness cannot withstand the power of prayer and faith. Let us walk in the true light with faith. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would, let's stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good morning. It's good to see so many early birds. My name is Don Ratliff. I'm on the board of directors for the JFK Assassination Conference, and I'd like to personally welcome you to Dallas, Texas, and the 6th annual JFK Assassination Conference. By show of hands, how many of you will this be your first JFK-related conference? Excellent. I love to see newbies. Well, one of the things I'm going to tell you, if you haven't been here before, buckle up. I'm serious. We've got a load of speakers. We've got a lot of information. You're going to leave this conference this weekend, and you're going to have a different perspective. I don't care what your perspective is right now. It's going to be different. It's going to be fuller. You're going to come away with an experience that you're going to be talking about for years to come. For those, how many of you have been here to the conferences before? Excellent. Obviously, there was something that made you want to come back again, and I'm imagining it's because you enjoyed what you had from the previous years. One of the things I love about the conference is that it's not just the same set of speakers each year, but even the ones that come back, they bring us new information. And it's an opportunity for us to share that information, learn the truth, and then go back home and share that truth. I have the honor and the pleasure this weekend to be your master of ceremonies, and so I'm going to go ahead and get started with my responsibilities. And let's see. One of the things that Judith wanted me to remind you was that we do have, again, coffee and bagels, mushrooms, muffins and such, $2 for a coffee and your choice of a bagel or a Danish or a muffin. One of the things I wanted to do is go ahead and, first of all, thank our volunteers. We had a number of volunteers who came last night and helped get this room set up. And we could not have done it without you. So if you would, if you were a volunteer and you were here last night, please raise your hand, please stand up. Let us know who you were, because you are invaluable to this conference. This conference runs on the support of our volunteers, so thank you so very much. And we have a number of volunteers that I want to acknowledge here quickly. We have an amazing set of people here who have made this happen. The first person I wanted to call out is Randy Benson. Randy's over there to your right, and Randy is an accomplished filmmaker. He, for those of you who don't, come on, give him a round of hand. We're going to have professional recording this year of this conference. And one of the reasons that personally I'm involved and why I'm grateful to be involved in here is I want to make sure that what we have up here on this platform is captured for all time, because our speakers, our researchers are getting older. And our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren need to know what they know. And this is the way we're going to do it. So Randy, thank you so much for volunteering your services and making sure that we're going to have this. Now, Randy is an Academy Award-winning film producer for his project, Man and a Dog. He was given the Academy Award for the, let's see, what was it, Randy? It's down here. The Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences Student Academy Awards for his movie Man and Dog. So he is an accomplished filmmaker. In 2016, his movie The Searchers debuted at the Texas Theater. I had the pleasure of being at that debut. It was an amazing piece of work. He's got copies of his DVD here for sale. I would encourage you to get a copy of it. I'm definitely going to. Next person I want to mention, oh, actually, there was a quote here that I wanted to read. Judith gave me. Better put on my glasses. This was a quote from Randy. He said, "In my family, it was assumed the assassination was done by elements in this country. My father was a fighter in the Cold War stationed on the east-west German border. Anything happens, with 15 minutes, he was in the air. Bay of Pigs, the attempts on Charles de Gaulle, any major movement in the Iron Curtain countries, he was in the air. He found out that Kennedy was assassinated at dinner in the officers' club, and he was not scrambled." Just get that. All these other things, they were scrambled. And for this, the loss of our president, and he was not scrambled. He said, "For my father, he was in World War II, Korea. When protocol at that level is not followed, there's a meaning to it." He said, "My father was a patriot of patriots." And he said, "Yeah, they killed that bastard," was his attitude. So he knew by what they didn't do that this was done by our own government. So So thank you, Randy. Appreciate you being here. The next person I want to call out is Peter Hymans. Peter is our exquisite photographer and our latest member of the board of directors. I've had the pleasure of working with Peter for several years now, and he is an amazing man, and he brings great talents to this, and he is helping keeping us organized. One of the things I have here, as I mentioned, is you can get an idea of his fierce dedication to the truth by his former email address, brassballsnow. And as Judith already mentioned, he previously worked on Bobby Kennedy's campaign. So, Peter, thank you so much for all that you bring here today. And he's going to be speaking here a little bit later. Jim Ellis, are you here? Jim, right up here. Now, Jim, I just recently met, and I've had only a few occasions to work with him so far, but I love his passion, I love the energy, and I know he's going to be a great member of this team. So thank you for being here, Jim. All right. Jim Glover, David Neal, are you here? Go ahead and stand, please, so we can see you. All right, Jim, David. Jim, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. David, I had an opportunity to work with the past couple years. David is a singer-songwriter and did the song Oswald Didn't Do It, which you can actually see on YouTube. It's actually quite clever. So check it out, Oswald Didn't Do It on YouTube. All right, now for Jim, Jim is a radical singer and a musician who's made several albums and was once a good friend of a famous peacenik and musician, Phil Oakes, and whose peace music and obsession with the JFK assassination probably got him killed. And there's going to be a handout about the CIA's Operation Chaos in your conference bag, so check that out. All right, and let's see, what else do I need to do? Well, I think it's time to bring up our first group of speakers. We've got Peter Hymans, David Neal, Randy Benson, and they're going to be doing a tribute to Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King. Peter, where are you? There you are. Give us a round of hand, please, if you would. Peter Hymans.
Thank you. Even if we act to erase material poverty, there is another greater task: to confront the poverty of satisfaction, purpose, and dignity that affects us all. Too much, and for too long, we have surrendered personal excellence and community values over to the mere accumulation of material things. Our gross national product, now over $800 billion a year, measures air pollution and cigarette advertising, and ambulances to clear our highways of carnage. It counts the special locks for our doors, prisons and jails for people who break laws. The GNP measures the destruction of the redwoods, the loss of our natural wonder and chaotic sprawl. It counts napalm and nuclear warheads and armored cars for the police to fight the riots in our cities, and the TV programs which glorify violence in order to sell war toys to our children. Yet, the gross national product does not allow for the health of our children, the quality of their education, the joy of their play. The gross national product does not include the beauty of our poetry or the strength of our marriages, the intelligence of our public debate, or the integrity of our public officials. It measures neither our wit nor our courage, neither our wisdom nor our learning, neither our compassion nor our devotion to our country. The gross national product measures everything, in short, except that which makes life worthwhile. And it can tell us everything about America except why we are proud to be Americans. That speech, that's an excerpt from a speech that was given by Robert Kennedy at the University of Kansas on March 18th, 1968, about a month and a half before he was shot. That was a sad day. So I'm a photographer. On my business card it says, freezing reality since 1954. I had a little brownie camera that used VP 127 black and white film, and I shot a lot of pictures. And it became a great skill. When I went to Whittier College, I was a photographer for the yearbook and the newspaper. And I was on Robert Kennedy's campaign staff at Whittier College. And one day the editor, Bruce Murphy and Rich Seeley, came and said, let's go see Bobby. We actually stayed over a couple of days after finals had begun, or had completed. And so we went down to either Pico Rivera or La Habra, someplace like that. And I call myself a hunter with a glass weapon. My camera is my gun. So I roamed around, and finally I got onto the street, and the limousine came by. And Bobby was looking the other way. And I've always been a good salesman, so I said, hey, Senator, I'm over here. And so he turned around and looked, and I said, I'm on your campaign staff at Whittier College. And he said, thank you. Look me in the eye. Thank you. I need all the help I can get. We shook hands, and I stepped back, and I took a picture, which you'll see in a couple of seconds. 2 days later, he was shot and died, and my heart was broken, seriously broken. And then the other lone assassin was announced, and a bell went off in my head, and I said, hey, wait a minute, I was born at night, but not last night. There's something fishy here. So from 1968 until today, I've been accumulating books and meeting up with all kinds of fascinating, interesting, dedicated, crazy people, crazier than I am. And it's been fun. It's been rewarding. And so let's take a look at the pictures. In my travels, I had the honor and the pleasure to meet Penn Jones Jr. How many of you know Penn Jones Jr.? Fantastic, brave, ballsy individual, never held back with a word he said, and you'll see in a couple of seconds something that he wrote to me. There he is standing, shall we say, timidly by the fence on the grassy knoll, probably about the place where the final headshot was fired, if one theory is correct. I think it's pretty correct. Next slide, please. And there we are in the kill zone where the big event took place. And I don't know what he's pointing at, probably the records building or whatever, but next slide, please. And this is what Penn wrote to me. You can take a look and see where he was at. You can tell he wasn't the most optimistic person on the planet, but he was a fighter. Next slide, please. Okay, so people talk about, could there have been a shot from the sewer? I was there. I was there before they built up the layers of pavement, and there could have been a shot from the pavement. There's a British sniper rifle called a Carlisle. It shoots a .45 caliber round, almost completely silent. That was a possibility, but that's me down there with my fancy hippie shirt on. It was a long time ago, and I was about 45, 50 pounds slimmer. Next slide, please. Okay, later in the event, we're going to be showing an interview that Jim Ellis and I did with Paul Schrade in Hollywood a little more than a week ago. Gracious gentleman, a brave man, and the interview will be very interesting, so I hope that you're all here to see it. Next slide, please. And thank you, Jim, for doing the camera work. He's a great camera and sound man. Next slide. And there's Jim with Paul Schrade a week and a half ago. Next slide. And there is Paul signing the envelopes, which will be auctioned off here or sold or whatever Judith decides. They're hers now. But I had those when I was on his campaign in 1968. Kept them in my garage, and a couple of them are weathered, so the earlier you get involved, the nicer ones you'll get. But weathering is good, as you can tell by looking at my face. Slide, please. And that's a picture of one of the envelopes. And he says, Viva RFK, Paul Schrade. Next slide. And that's the picture that I took of Bobby Kennedy on the 3rd of June, 1968. And still brings tears to my eyes. Okay, is that it? Okay, and then at some future date, Chris Milliken may publish a book that I intend to write called The Aurists, which is really theorists made into 2 words. The orists are people like me that say, or what, or this, or that. So someday we'll see that in print. If not, you'll be hearing about it if we have coffee together. Thank you, Fred. Okay, I want to say thanks to Judith and Don Ratliff and Marty Eichler for having me on the board of directors. This conference really kicks butt. You don't have to be a genius, you don't have to be an author, you don't have to be a producer to be involved here. You just have to have a big heart, and that's really why we're all here. I'm not here for vengeance. I'm not here for details. I'm not here to find DNA samples in the book depository. I'm here because I want to co-create a we, us, and our world. And I believe that each and every one of you want to do that. Deep down below the pain and the anger and the fear, there is this desire to have a safe place for our families and a safe place to conduct business and so on. So that's why I'm here. Randy Benson, thanks for being a great mentor. It's been great working with you. It's not over yet. Yeah, two other things. Number one, to the vendors and the people, the organizers and such, the acoustics in this room are just short of terrible. And so if you would please remember to keep your voices down so that people like me and the other great presenters don't have their gifts compromised by excessive noise. The other thing is, I'm the photographer, I'm the still photographer. So if you see me pointing my camera at you, I want you to know two things. Number one, I want you to look the best you possibly can. So don't ignore me. I'm not here to take anything from you. As a matter of fact, I don't take pictures. I receive the images that you give to me, and I'm grateful for that. So when you see me looking at you with my camera, give me a hi, give me a smile, and I promise the camera will make you look good. I got nothing to do with it. And the last thing is, Don, stand up. Where are you? Don Ratliff. Okay, everybody look at that man. He's the sergeant at arms. He's the hard guy. And if people are on a clock and they go over their time, Don has the duty. He's the tool for the event to make sure that people stay on time and that this show smows fully. I almost had it done. Flows smoothly. So it's going to be a great program. It's chock full. Take notes, take pictures, buy books, intermingle with one another, and remember, we are going to create a we, us, and our world, because after this, we're not just going to be reading and studying. We're going to be in action. We're going to be doing things that raise public awareness and get S done. Thank you very much. Oswald was innocent.
Thank you, Pete. That was wonderful. I'm not going to read a book. I'm just going to play some songs. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? My name is David Neal. I'm from North Carolina, and I'm like most of you out there. I've been a student of the Kennedy assassination about 30 or 40 years. Read everything from Howard Rothman to the most recent books, actually. Phil Nelson's books, Dick Russell's books. Who else is here? Jim Mars, Judy Baker. I used to go to the Lancer conferences 15 years ago. I've been to many Lancer conferences. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear the guitar? Good. Went to the Lancer conferences a lot, and in 16, I was over there, and I had read Judy's book that fall. And no, I had not read it. I had not read it. Now, let me tell you why I had not read Judy's book. I went to the Lancer conferences and met a lot of researchers and a lot of people who studied the assassination and respect everybody that works hard doing this. But some people are biased. And there are a lot of people in here that are not biased, and that's good. So I was biased. I had read some blogs blog statements about Judy, said she's not credible, she can't back it up, yada, yada, yada. I saw it. I said, okay, well. But then I finally got her. I went over to the conference that she held in 16. I walked over there, and there's all these serious researchers. Jim Mars, I can't even name Sean Stone, so many guys. A lot of you guys were there, Dick Russell. And I said, well, this is a serious deal. So I went home and read that book the next fall. And I was so intrigued with it, I went to New Orleans in the fall of September. And if you have not been on a tour with Judy Baker in New Orleans, the veil hasn't been lifted. But if you have, it's definitely lifted. She is real, she is genuine, she's a human being, she's a living witness. And that's my conviction, but I'm just a reader and a student of the assassination. John Kennedy and the Kennedys together were visionaries, human beings. They may have had some failings, like we all do, but they were probably the last good hope we've had. Maybe there's hope still out there. After all, John Newton was a slave trader. Anybody know who John Newton was? He wrote Amazing Grace. He had a change of heart. Maybe this country can have a change of heart. We hope so. With people like Richard Bartholomew, and I'd love to name everybody I know, but I'm nervous. But I'm going to sing a song that's inspired by John Kennedy. John Kennedy tried to stop nuclear war. And I'm not going to go over my time because Jim is here and I'm going to give him all his time. So I've got about 15, 20 minutes. I'm going to do a couple, maybe less than that, do 3 songs. But John Kennedy tried to stop nuclear war, as you all know. And we're closer to it now than we've ever been. Doomsday clock is like 2 minutes, or maybe it's a minute to midnight. Nuclear war is very dangerous to the extent that it's going to blow this country away and this little planet, this dust in the sky, away if we're not careful. And we're all going to sit there up in heaven and say, if we believe in heaven, and say, my gosh, I didn't have anything to do with that. Well, we're all guilty if we allow it to happen. This song is called Guilty by Association. Well, the little Nagasaki boy thought it was just a toy, that shiny plane way up overhead. Well, the paper floated down with the words that he found. He could read from his right to his left. Tell your emperor to quit. Oh, this is what he's gonna get. Just like Dresden or Hiroshima. As the bomb left the bay, 100,000 blew away. Guilty by association. The old herdsman from Kabul heard the buzz up above, and he looked up, wondering what it was. While the soldier at her screamed, she thought, this is kind of mean, as a voice in her ear said, light him up. Then she fired with a flick of her little joystick and sent down a rain of flame from above. As the smoke cleared away, she thought of a September day, guilty by association. Was it Libya, Syria, Yemen, or Iraq? To the young pilot, it all seemed the same. While the generals back at home in their situation room turned to the well-dressed man and said, you know, after this is all done, we're gonna need someone to fight for the next session. He said, don't worry, it's all done, and it's a cool operation. It's called guilty by association. Well, the computer picked up the hits. They were definitely coming in. The Pentagon was filled too late with alarm. While the housewife in Des Moines, she was screaming, "What's going on?" at the TV anchor who seemed way too calm. Then the president's aide burst into a room of frightened men, saying, "We have a final translation. It says it don't matter who started this. There are no innocents. Guilty by association." Well, a brave man once said, just before they shot him in the head, "We're all mortal and we breathe the same air." You'd think by now we had the sense to see there is no difference, except in our tans and the colors in our hair. World War is so insane, and it always ends up the same. Nothing but heartbreak, destruction, and annihilation. Well, if we blow it all away, all the angels are gonna say is guilty by association. I got a couple more minutes. Jim up here. Jim and I had a little hootenanny in his room last night. Bob Dylan blowing in the wind. It was a lot of fun, actually. And very pertinent to me because Jim is a living witness. He sang with Phil Oakes. He knew Bob Dylan. He still knows him. I guess you know Bob, don't you? Yep. And Bob Dylan's an inspiration to me, as you can probably tell. But it was really fun playing with him. And I'm still nervous. I thought I'd get out of the nervous after one song. I'm still nervous. It's one thing playing in a bar with people talking and laughing and everything. It's other when you're all looking at everything, what the hell do you want to say? But it's wonderful to have people listening. So this next song, I've got time for this one. This next song is the song I did last year. Is called November '63. Back in the day when JFK was the president, some old white men didn't like it when he ran the government. So filled with hate, they laid in wait to take him from the scene. They caught him down here in Dallas, Texas, November '63. Well, the warring crew took the view, and they covered up the mess, blamed it all on Lee Harvey Oswald, just disregarded all the rest. They didn't investigate, they just obfuscate every legitimate lead. So no one knew what was true. November '63. But the cover up, it wasn't easy. You see, a lot of people knew the truth. See, the doctor said it was hit in the head from the front, maybe the back too. But that last bullet, like a shot from hell, killed democracy in a coup d'etat in Dallas, November '63.
We've been living in a war machine. It's like a nightmare for a wonderful life, that old Jimmy Stewart movie dream. It's like a poplar's field of death, and unaccountability. Ever since they killed the president, November '63. How much more time do I have, Don? 3 minutes. I'm going to try to do this new song. One more song. It's called Bobby Kennedy. And Bobby Kennedy was killed by persons unknown in a hotel pantry in old LA town. He was shot in the head by a pistol so near that it left residue all over his ear. Well, Sirhan, that hapless young tool was 6 feet away and waiting to shoot. And he was wrestled to the ground, but not after getting off all his 8 rounds. Well, experts say that Sirhan was probably programmed to be a distraction for the real assassin's hand. Hypnosis was used, MK Ultra the game, or Bluebird, or Artichoke, or some other stupid name. Well, a young reporter had his tape recorder on as he followed behind Bobby's entourage throng. And the shots that he caught as the senator failed were 5 more Sirhan's pistol beheld.
Well, the simple truth. Honest lawyers and folks have tried for decades to get California to quit its evil charade. But the evidence is lost, it's been destroyed or withheld. And Sirhan sits there locked down in his cell. Well, the simple truth has been there all along. They were afraid of Martin, Bobby, and John. So our heroes have been brutally taken away by conmen and fools and crooks who still rule the day. Sometimes I sit and stare out across the sea, and I dream of a place that's so far away, where justice and truth still will prevail. But where that is, it's hard to tell. Thank you. And now, Jim and Chris.
Well, howdy do. My name is Chris Milligan. I'm the publisher of Trying Day. I'm a musician too, but I'm not going to sing today. What I'm going to do is, well, I am going to sing. I'm going to sing the praises of Judith Ferry Baker. Okay? Because I want us all to get up and stand and clap for Judith Ferry Baker. Because we would not have this conference if it was not Judith Ferry Baker. We would not be on this road to truth without Judith Ferry Baker. God bless him. Okay, I'm supposed to... Thank you. I'm supposed to remind people to wear their badges. And also, if we could get a head count for the buffet, if everybody who wants to take the buffet raise their hands. Okay, Don?
Oh, keep them up.
Keep them up.
The buffet this afternoon. Or what? Okay, 35. Okay, and it is also my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Phil Oakes. Jim Glover, who is a friend of Phil Oakes. Okay, and you know, as this conference grows, we get more and more people, and it is really an honor, and it's going to be a pleasure for you. Thank you very much.
Well, I think Phil Oakes is in my soul somewhere, so that's all right, Chris. Oh, good. I can get away from this. Folk singers aren't used to singing next to podiums, make a lot of noise. There we go. I guess a good place to start about Phil was we were at ROTC at Ohio State University. I was Army cadet, freshman. He was junior Air Force, a sergeant. He knew a lot. He knew a lot about Castro and stuff, but he was pumping me for information. He liked all my stories about George Bush. And George Bush knew me as a kid because he wanted me to spy on my dad. My dad was a lieutenant for Gus Hall. He used to hide out in my bedroom upstairs, attic bedroom, when the FBI was after him. And so Phil Oakes was working for national security. Even when we were in college, he was telling me about that I was fair game, but we had this love-hate relationship. He told me his secrets after college. Phil Oakes came to me, and when we were living in Gene Ray, we were married. We weren't married then. We were just kind of living in sin as a duet, Jim and Gene. And Phil came over and said, there's a plot to kill President Kennedy. And he wanted to know if I knew anything about it. I said, no, what's going on? He said, well, I'm working this national security group, sort of like the CIA. Probably with something to do with the Air Force, but that's my guess, because he's very proud of the Air Force. And so I said, no, I don't. So he said, let me know if you know anything. Sure, I will. I'll let you know. So he said, I'm going over to Fair Play for Cuba to see what more I can find out. And he knew, was it V.T. Lee? He was head of Fair Play for Cuba. I called up V.T. Lee many years later and said, did you know Phil Oakes? Oh, yeah, he was working with us. So that's the truth. Oswald wasn't, right? He wasn't really working for Fair Play for Cuba. That was his kind of split personality thing. Phil had a split personality too. And when you get into the spy business, you got to have a split personality. If you don't have it, naturally they'll give it to you. So anyway, on the Hollywood Hootenanny tour was how they got me involved, because they knew that I was helping Phil with the assassination investigation. And so the Hollywood Hootenanny tour managers wanted me to be on this tour, and Phil said, don't go, man. And so, because they're going to kill Kennedy in the South. And the tour was from L.A. all through the South. We went through Dallas about a couple of weeks before the assassination, and some 3 guys got off telling me to call my dad because my dad's related to Thomas Jefferson. I was telling him, "What are you doing here?" You know, so I didn't want to tell him what I was doing because I was spying on the plot, and the managers wanted me on there because they said, I said, "Well, I'm working on a plot to find out what it is." And he said, "That's why I want you to go." They said, "Don't write anything down, don't interfere because it's dangerous." So, okay. And before we even took the tour, they needed a publicity picture for Gene and I. So they flew us on a twin-engine plane from L.A. to Mobile, Alabama. Gene got off and went back to New York, but they flew me back alone, back to L.A. And just the pilot and me was on the plane. I was sitting, back, and it was a noisy plane. Everything got back to the airport, and our friend Ray Parker said he was picking me up at the airport. He said, "Jim, do you know that's a CIA plane?" See, it says Tiger Airlines on the side of the plane. So the CIA were setting me up so that people would think I was in the CIA. I probably was an asset for them, even since I was a kid. So the first person I told about this plot, so on the tour, they right after they knew that they separated me from the rest of the musicians several times, separated me from my wife, we were married at that time, and picked me, after they told me that Kennedy was dead, these 2 agents, they were looking at me like for a reaction. I didn't give any reaction at all. I just wanted to get through this thing alive, and I didn't know who they were. So then I go to get back on the Hootenanny bus, and the guys at the door are barring me from getting back on the bus. And then these kids were surrounding me, these teenagers, must have been about 5, 6 of them, pushing up against me. I couldn't move, and this taller guy had my arm twisted behind my back, said, "Be quiet, Jim, be quiet." And the bus was pulling away. I said, "Remember this?" And so then I thought, "Oh man, I'm dead now, they're going to kill me." And then another extra bus pulls up. They had many buses, Hootenanny buses. This thing's a little bit loud, I think, feedback. But anyway, so they put me on this bus, picked up, we were near Houston, and the bus traveled, and then there were these kind of looked like Latino soldiers, could have been Mexicans, I don't know, just little guys. And they took over the bus at one point. They got rid of the uniformed Trailways driver. He's off the bus, and this one guy took over the driving. It was like they hijacked this bus that they forced me onto. What was this bus doing? Well, it was on the way to the airport in Houston. And we stopped, and they told us, they're giving me orders, nobody pull down the blinds, don't look out the windows. I was following orders, because I figured, oh, I'm dead, I might as well see how far this goes, So this guy in the back, I call them my angels. There's always somebody that's kind of helping me, unknown people. And he goes, "We're at an airport." Then people heard clamoring around with luggage compartments and stuff, and strangers started getting on, men with suits. There was the Dallas cops. This is the Houston airport. Dallas cops with the guy who looked like Oswald, was a little bit taller with a crew cut. He reminded me of a friend I knew, so he had the weak chin and the just the face kind of looked like he was tears in his eyes. I could tell he knew he was dead. I don't know who he was. I didn't know anything about Oswald at that time. Didn't know nothing about what was going on in Dallas. I didn't even know Phil was in Dallas at that time. And so then this guy who's dressed freaky in the dress, I think he had a a green suit or a brown suit, and he had this ill-fitting wig, didn't fit him, kind of a red wig, and he had these pasted-on furry eyebrows, and so you guess who I figured it was. But he also had freckles all over his face, kind of reminded me of Freddie Neal had a lot of freckles on the back of his neck. Well, it turns out it wasn't David Ferry. It was a David Ferry imposter who knew that I knew Bush, so I knew the whole story. And so he sits down, how's the trip, Jim? Okay. So then he goes and these guys are getting on the bus, more people on the bus from the airport, airstrip, and he goes, do you know that guy getting on the bus right now? I'm looking, I don't know, in front of the bus. So after we stopped at a pit stop, real quick, I got off. I don't remember seeing any newspapers. It probably didn't even hit the papers by then. It was late afternoon. And got back on the bus, and the blonde lady over here, dressed real nice. There's more about that probably in my book, Born to Spy. Born to Spy for everybody, as I tell them. But I'm looking over to the right, and there's George Bush sitting by the window, and Hoover leaning up against him. J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI. I'm the only person that knows where the hell he was that day. Hoover never told anybody. Look it up. He's the big hero, right? Where was he? Where was Bush? Nobody knows where Bush was, but Barbara, she helped me in this investigation. I'll tell you more about that later. So I go back and sit down behind the David Ferry imposter. I didn't know who he was. I never heard of David Ferry at that time. I didn't know, it's this freaky guy there. And I see that there's still this blonde lady up. I see this blonde hair up in the front of the bus. So anyway, we drive on, and people were getting off. I think Bush got off near his house. Airport was only about 20 minutes from his house, according to his address that he gave to the FBI. When Bush called the FBI right after the Kennedy assassination, called him in Houston, he said, well, there's this guy, James Parrott, who's working for our Republican Party, and there were rumors that he was supposed to kill Kennedy yesterday in Houston. Yesterday.